talk about surrender, unity, and funding our experience. But Kathy has some special announcements before we go to the last half of the show.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Andrew. I just want to remind everyone you can get a private session with Andrew, Debbie, or myself by contacting Tenoch at galactichistorian.com. That's TENOCH. And we'll be able to get to the bottom of your issues and help you see a better way ahead. So go ahead and contact Tenoch at galactichistorian.com. And for those of you who don't know, Andrew is offering a free video series called Living the Mystical Life Daily. He shows you some tools and gives you knowledge about how to have mystical experiences in your everyday life. Sign up for free at andrewbartzis.com. Just put your name and email when you get to the page and you'll receive the first video right away. Again, just get it at andrewbartzis.com and enter your name and email to receive the Living the Mystical Life Daily series. Also, the new exciting news from me, Kathy Ma, is that my internet website is up now, so you can go and check me out and have a look at what I have to say at kathyspearlsofwisdom.com, and that's Kathy with a K. And for those of you who are like me and misspelt wisdom, there is no E in wisdom. And also, don't forget to check out Debbie's site, innerdimensionhypnotherapy.net, to look at all the interesting things that she does.
And now we are going to talk about the next process, funding our experience. With that comes food. So now I want to bring to Debbie, funding the experience, how food is such an integral part of our process, such as detoxing or being able to have a mystical experience with enough energy in your system so you can remember it and process it.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. That's a really big, comprehensive subject. We're talking about food and how that affects us. It's getting into balance about what type of foods really, help your body. We've all got different blood types. There's a book out that I've been reading recently on, eating by blood type, and also looking at your health through your blood type. And so there's certain foods that really agree with people, and there's other foods that don't. And with my blood type, I've got to stay away from the potatoes, the tomatoes, all that type of. There's certain type of foods that apparently bring up some little allergies and irritations in my body. It's just getting to learn to get into balance about what type of foods work for you and really give you energy and inspire you to become even healthier through exercise as well. But we're looking at actually all the different things that we can do to create good health and a clear mind, body and spirit. And so taking into consideration some of the experiences that I've had in my life with different individuals. There was one person I met several years ago who was a total vegan, him and his wife, and they looked so unhealthy. They weren't doing it in a balanced way, in such a way that actually the body was eating itself, and they were so emancipated and very, very thin. You see all the the bones sticking out. And I did have a private talk with the gentleman, and I said, I'm really concerned about you and where you're at with your health. And he's like, well, I'm a total vegan, and it really works for me. But he'd been quite sick, and he was, pretty against antibiotics, and he had this terrible lung infection. And I said to him, everything is God. Everything comes from source, regardless. We've got to stop judging what's good and what's bad. We've got to look at what's going to work for us and what's not going to work for us. And so he accepted those antibiotics at that time, and I told him, allow yourself to heal. Then you can do a cleanse if you want to get rid of the antibiotics out of your body. There's ways that you can cleanse and get rid of that. But in the meantime, you're going to have to give something to your body to heal, because you've become so thin and so weakened with the diet that you're on that you don't have the strength to heal what's going on for you anymore. And that was what really concerns me about the different attitudes people have around what is good and what isn't. It's making, whether you're doing good choices or bad choices, about what you put into your body and into your system, and how it's affecting you. You've got to take a realistic look at yourself. I know at one point, like I mentioned before, I was really thin. Mine wasn't from lack of food. It was from my lack of choices and giving to myself. But in a lot of situations here, I find especially in the awakening process, a lot of people feel that they have to just eat pure foods, and that's wonderful to a certain point, but you have to do it in such a way that it's really balanced for you and it's going to support your body. If you start to see your body losing too much weight, you have to really stop and question what's going on here. Obviously there's something that I'm not doing in balance because my body is now becoming more weak and I'm not thinking clearly. This gentleman that I was talking about, he died 8 months later after that situation of me meeting him and trying to talk him into getting into a better diet, but he just stuck to his vegan diet.
Wasn't the gentleman's
and
wife...
sometimes,
Wasn't the gentleman's wife, she
yeah.
was a hardcore vegan enough, even her teeth had become translucent?
Yes, she looked very unhealthy too, and I just haven't kept in touch with her since I heard that her husband passed away. She looked very emancipated herself, and looking into her eyes, Andrew, it really shocked me. Both of them, when I looked into both of their eyes, they looked dead. There was just no life force,
Right.
No spark.
Right. They're on that subsistence living program where they're becoming martyrs to themselves, and their process to get to have raw food has been taken over by the zealot. Everything in balance. So I want to bring the same set of questions to Kathy now. Funding the experience with food. And in Asia, you saw all sorts of food, as well as different food programs that different people would run to justify whatever was going on with them.
Yes, certainly there's a lot of stuff over there that, I guess I can't say I never heard of it because I got brought up around a lot of it. It was, people do very strange things for what they consider good health or to achieve certain results. In Asia, a lot of it is around Chinese herbs, obviously, because for any ailment that you have at all can be healed, apparently, by Chinese herbs. I don't know how much I subscribe to that belief, but certainly for a lot of ailments, that is true, and health maintenance. They have these special herbal mixes that make up. I mean, you go to a actual Chinese herb doctor who will then take your pulse and look at your tongue and then will prescribe whatever it is you need for general robustness and wherever you're weak. And they also have a lot of a line of thinking about not eating meat. Not necessarily completely vegan, but certainly not a lot of meat in certain aspects of their thinking. And most people you'll find that I've seen that do subscribe to these kind of beliefs tend to actually be quite weak. I'm not going to say unhealthy, but their whole body structure has become a lot weaker. Their muscular definition is weaker, and because of Chinese cooking, I suppose, as well, with a lot of the vegetarian stuff, they actually fry it because it's not, Asia is not as big with salads as it is in the Western world. So they'll even if they just quick fry the vegetables. But the thing is, because you're doing so much frying, there's a lot of oil in your diet as well. And this oil that often they use peanut oil as well, it really does help sap the energy away. Number one, not getting enough protein. Number two, getting a lot of, fried oil in your diet, and subscribing to a lot of the Chinese herbal mixes every day. I mean, this is not just like once a week. A lot of them drink it every day. You can see that their body, their chi, their energy is low. It's weakened. They think they feel better in that they seem to poo less or eat more, but in their mind it's healthier, and psychologically they seem to think that they are much healthier and feel better. But when you look at them and you look at their energy, physically they don't look that well, and energetically speaking they look very vulnerable. And I guess what I mean by vulnerable is when you're when you can have high energy, you can have low energy, and you also have a vulnerable energy, which means it's not necessarily where they're in the low energy, but you're not strong. So by vulnerable, I mean you're very susceptible to picking up other people's energy and carrying that with you because your own energy isn't strong enough to repel. So it could be as simple as you walking down a crowded street and there's three grumpy people that are standing next to you at the escalator. You might be taking on their baggage, don't even know it, and then wonder why you feel depressed by the time you get to the train. And this has all got to do with fueling the body, honoring your actual physical being and giving it what it needs. Taking anything to extremes really is not a good idea because our core being on an energetic level needs all different things to make up our fuel for not just the body but for our soul, our energy, and our I guess I could only call it your breath, like that bright spark of breath that is in your eyes, which Debbie had referred to, the aliveness, the tingling in your fingertips that makes you realize that life is great, I'm alive, I'm moving forward, I've got things going on. And then you have other things that also go on over in Asia that, they have very weird diets, which I think that you probably have them in the Western world too, is, they only eat bananas for a week or only have eggs for a week and all these kind of things. And people think that it's for health reasons, to cleanse their body, to detox, but really all it seems to achieve to me when I look at people that have been doing it is that, yes, they do drop the weight that they had wanted to in that 1 or 2 weeks, but then afterwards it's almost like you eat triple fold. And on top of that, energetically speaking, your energy becomes lower and lower. It's like an ebbing tide. So whether or not they achieve their goal, I would say, from my point of view, no. Maybe for that fast food version of I got it straight away, they feel they achieved their goal. But what damage does it do to your body in the long term is the sort of questions you really need to look inwards and ask yourself. Fads and phases, quick solutions, they all don't last a lifetime for your own body and its health. What are you going to do to maintain your body at its optimum health throughout its lifetime is really where you should be looking.
Exactly, looking and looking and looking. So Debbie, now I want to bring the next question to you. We have these concepts of what good food is and bad food. We all know that GMO is the low quality, lowest possible food out there. And in this next question, it's preparing food. And when we prepare our food in our own way, we put our energy into it, and it's something as an awakening process many people can come to learn to love themselves enough to put good energy into their food. Not just having a little prayer over your meal and empowering it and removing the GMO stuff from it, but truly putting your intent behind it.
Yes, it's being very conscious when you're preparing your food because we all had this experience, right, where either our mother or some relative has made this wonderful tasting dish and we go, oh, I have to have that recipe. And you get the recipe and it tastes nothing like what they made. And it's one of their favourite. I know we've all had that experience, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you realise that it's their frequency and it's one of their favourite dishes and the love that went into it. So there's love energy and there's alchemy that goes into this food that makes it a difference. And because you used all the same ingredients, you did it exactly the way they tell you, and yet it tastes nothing like it. And one of those was what my mother's. She had a favourite dish was a beautiful fried rice dish that she put all these vegetables and bacon, and it just tasted exquisite. And she stood there and, and told me how to do it and showed me every which way and and what process that she did it in and what order and everything. I did it exactly to a T. And my husband's like, that doesn't taste anything like your mother's. I'm like, oh, what's the difference? So when you start to really look at what's the difference is, I was probably quite nervous trying to put it all together, trying to get it the same, a totally different frequency, a totally different intent. to the way that my mother did it. So it's like being consciously aware when we're preparing our food, and we're preparing it for our loved ones, and we're preparing it for our family, is what thoughts are going through our mind? Are we, when we're chopping up food, are we thinking about the neighbour that really pissed us off a couple of days ago? Or are we still holding a grudge about something, or are we in fear about some other experiences that might be coming up in the future, and it's all unknown and we don't know what steps to move forward into? All these thought processes when we're preparing our food all goes into the food and affects it. And it affects the people who eat it. So, Andrew, I think it's really important that, that we are very conscious that when we're preparing our food, how we're thinking, what thoughts are going on at the time for us, and to try and keep it clear and do it with love. And also, I automatically I do bless my food before I eat it as well. And I know I don't even think about GMO or anything like that. I actually ask the Holy Spirit to bring through the energies into the food that is going to, be healthy and healing for me personally. And that's the energy that I'm putting into my plate, especially when you're at a restaurant.
Exactly. Now, a number of months ago, I was on an interview, and the question was, of all the unhealthy people that I've seen and all the cancer patients, what is the biggest group of people you've helped the most? And it'll be the extreme eaters of food, the extreme McDonald's people who love to have that 16-year-old kid who's pissed off at his mom frequency and don't aware that they're sharing that energy, or to the extreme into veganism where they're subsistence living and they're one step away from being an emaciated living skeleton. And I know I'm going to catch flack in the comment section about this, but when you're dealing with extremisms, you are dealing with an unhealthy person. That includes the McDonald's and the fast food eater who won't put any of their own frequency in their own food.
Yeah, that's so true. The fast food eater is a very difficult one, and so common these days. To get people to be motivated and inspired to eat healthier, whatever food choices they make, but to have healthier choices is a challenge. And breaking that cycle of, going to a fast food joint, I got no time, I'm just going to get McDonald's or whatever it is. It's so enticing that it's very difficult to give people inspiration as to how not to do it.
Yeah,
or the correct inspiration for that moment when they're weak.
Exactly. You're surrendering to your lowest power of will by getting that fast food instead of taking a few minutes and putting your own energy and putting something together, knowing full well to create something new within you.
Andrew, the conversation, we had this conversation yesterday briefly, and what really touched me with what you're saying, especially with the vegan diet, it's something, you don't have to give up being a vegan for the rest of your life. You're saying that you basically, what happens to a certain point with some, people who go on this extreme vegan diet and not having it in balance, they're not getting enough protein, so the body starts to attack the muscles because it's got to get some protein from somewhere in order to break
Energy.
down calcium and energy.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oftentimes, there are people in these extreme veganism diets, and I mean extremes, where they're subsistence living, they're picking it off of the branch, etc., etc., etc. It costs more calories to process the food than that they're actually getting from it. And then that puts them into a state where their body, much like the starving Ethiopian kids, are robbing their muscles of energy, and they begin to atrophy and get consumed. And many people out there who have seen the extremes in that food processing. On the other extreme, the McDonald's eaters get bloated and toxic. When someone is in an extreme veganism process, their body becomes toxic because it's eating its own self. The big thing is with the extreme veganism, you don't have the microorganisms inside your gut to actually break down the vegetables anymore when you've gone to a certain level. So what I was explaining in that other conversation is once you've reached that point where you're emaciated enough, you're just a few steps away from having the same bloated stomach where you can no longer digest your own muscles. So getting protein, whether it's an all-vegan natural protein, 40 to 60 grams of protein every day, And if you're not getting 40 to 60 grams of protein every day on that diet, not only you're doing it wrong, you're doing it the extreme way and causing a great deal of harm to your body, robbing your trueness of your mystical experience. That includes to the other side of the McDonald's or the fast food eaters. You too are robbing your mystical experience by forcing toxicity and lack of personal choice and change into your life.
Yeah, that's where we have to find the balance, really, and make the proper choices. That's what's going to support the body and what's going to support the body and the mind and the spirit.
That's right. And that's embracing the higher will. This is where surrender means accepting this moment, this body, this life with loving open arms. Surrender involves getting out of our own way and living in accord with our truly embraced higher will. Expressing the wisdom of the heart, far more than passive acceptance, surrender uses every challenge as a means of spiritual growth and expanded awareness. We learn to surrender by shifting our perspective, shifting your energy and attention from the desire of a smaller will to have the wisdom of a higher will, being like water, flowing and flexible, to bend with life's forces rather than struggling against them. The more you let go of attachments, the more you expand into the greater freedom of peace by embracing your higher will, understanding what surrender is, understanding the cycles of balance that's within you, and ultimately understand action brings knowledge into wisdom. No matter what our potential gifts or talents are, without action, they are meaningless.
Yes, I like that. Action brings knowledge and
To wisdom.
wisdom. I'm just thinking, those words are so powerful. They're just vibrating in my own being right now. And surrendering is difficult. And to acknowledge that that's happening in your life and that you're in a situation where you need to surrender, I mean, that's scary. That is really scary. And it takes a lot of courage to be able to surrender.
Getting out of our own way is one of the hardest surrenders of all.
Do you know what's really interesting too was when I was really underweight myself, I couldn't see it. And people are saying, oh, Debbie, you're really thin. And I'm like, oh, I don't think so. I thought I was looking pretty healthy. And so there's a lot of people that come to you, Andrew and Kathy and myself, that I'm sure, that think that they're okay, even though they might be emancipated or they might be extremely overweight. They really feel that there's nothing wrong with them.
Right. The emaciation is their delusion. When they're so emaciated, so lack of energy, so little chi inside them, that the spark that's trying to there is almost asking you to enable them to go further and further by telling them, yeah, I'm going to become a vegan, I'm going to do this. All of that stuff is still not understanding what's going on at the higher will here.
Yeah. I know I've got a saying that everything in moderation. So, that way it leaves everything open. You just be moderate in what you eat or all your choices. And so, that keeps it balanced more than being extreme this way or extreme that way.
Yeah. Balance is the glue that holds our reality together.
Right.
Yes, balance in all forms in our life. It's so necessary. You sort of poo-poo it until you realize what's out of balance, and then you realize how important it is.
Okay.
What usually wakes you up is all of a sudden that you've created a certain dis-ease in your body, and that that's what brings you to look at yourself. Either some people get pneumonia, other people get growths or tumors or whatever. The body's telling you there's something out of balance here. You need to address it.
Exactly.
That
and
is
when
so
we decide
true.
to come into unity to ourselves, which means we surrender to the process and we get out of our own way, we learn that each and every being on this earth has separate and diverse destinies. Each separate raindrop is part of the sea, each part of the ocean, and then the ocean of awareness. The very body of God. We find love and inner peace deep within the highest truth that we are all truly one family. We leave behind the baggage of fear, envy, and resentment, and we choose to fly into understanding, to glide into understanding, to walk into understanding, to enter the lands of compassion of the self. We choose unity for the greater realization that we are one being, one conscious, manifesting in different bodies, like many leaves to a tree. Our world is on the cusp of the shift of a competitive self-interest to open-hearted cooperation in the interest of the whole body of humanity, a global consciousness awakening. We find ourselves in the midst of this transition, and it will have great difficulties and great needs to surrender. Unity is the compilation of all of our different expressions that allow us to know what surrender is, to know what cycles is, to know what holding our actions and living our integral truth is, how to expand our reality, how to trust into spirit, how to awaken into the true power of our choice, what living in the moment really means, knowing that process is taking life step by step, that we must reclaim our power from old imprints so that we can find the middle way and that we grow this lifetime. This very show is about getting people to the most basics of basics of basics so we can ultimately understand what we are trying to share in this unity moment.
I like that unity moment. That's good. I'd never really thought of it like that. But the phrase really is very meaningful.
That's right. Unity moment.
Andrew, what you were just saying too is very, very inspiring, but it's also very thought-provoking, the fact that we are living in a time where we really have to start taking stock of ourselves, because there's so many things that are opening up and showing us, there's a lot of chaos going on in the world, and how are we going to support ourselves physically, emotionally and mentally in a situation like that. So we really have to look at our health. We have to look at our emotional being. We have to look at our way we're thinking. We can't think clearly if we're eating junk food and we're putting more toxins into our body. It's just becoming more balanced and self-aware about what are we going to put into our body, what are the type of people that we're going to engage with, what are our choices of type of friends that we're going to hang around with. Are they building us up or are they pulling us down? Every aspect of our life right now is that we really have to stop, take a good look, make good choices that is going to support your evolution. It's going to support your growth here, especially through these times are going to get harder for us. And we can all see that. And so we have to look at all the different things that we can do to help support us on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Exactly. And then another layer there, what we assume, expect, or believe creates and colors our experience. By expanding our deepest belief about what is truly possible, we change our experience of life. Any expectation will attract the evidence of your assumption, replace self-defeating doubts with new belief systems based on clear intention, conscious application of the sacred, focus on positive outcomes, and our powerful human potential. When we focus on expanding, we get new energy and new ways of thought.
Yes, clear intention. I think you've hit the nail on the head with that one as well, because you can have intention, but it's not necessarily clear. In your mind, you have to be very clear on what it is that you want, almost down to describing the detail, because it's the case of be careful what you ask for, isn't it?
Exactly. Be careful what you ask for.
I don't mean only carrots.
So, Kathy, do you have any last and final statements before we end the show today?
Well, I think the important thing to go back to over the last bit is the balance. I mean, everything we've been talking about, you really need to apply balance to everything. And especially with food that you come in, I think where none of us are saying give up fast food altogether. I mean, there's no way I can give up pizza forever.
Me neither.
But it's balance. It's the question of it's not balance for lunch and dinner every day. I mean, not pizza.
It's moderation.
Yes. And it's also being aware of what you're doing. You're making a conscious choice. Okay, I've had 2 fast food kind of items this week. I got to think about my health. I got to think about my body, honoring who I am as a being and being healthy. Balance. And from there, you go forward and try and make plans and modify where you can.
Exactly. Debbie, any last words for today's show?
I just want to thank Thank you, Andrew, for putting on this particular type of show for everybody, because it's not only helping other people, but it's helping us to get back into a right perspective with our own lives and bring ourselves more into balance. We have that reflection all the time where people come to us, and so it gives us the opportunity also to go within ourselves. And so I just encourage people to take a really good stock of where they are in their life, what their choices are in the type of foods or type of diets that they want to get into, but also make really clear choices about who they turn to for their spiritual health. There's so many different people out there, but I, really encourage you to research and make sure that, you're choosing people that's going to support where you are on your spiritual journey. So,
Exactly. And when we allow the spiritual journey to have a middle way and not extremes to both sides, we're able to reclaim our power, which is taking life step by step, creating goals that allow us to live in the moment so we can awaken to our humanity. And when we awaken to our humanity, we are trusting in our spirit, and we know that faith is our direct link to the universal wisdom working through everyone. And we expand our reality by letting go of expectations so we can live our truth. And then that in form of integrity, we can live our truth and not allow others to take our truth away. We know that action brings knowledge into wisdom, that moving into life requires to dance to nature's song and allow the cycles that are ever present to be a part of us. To embrace a higher will understands getting out of your own way, and is the very essence of what surrender is. And in surrender, we can understand a new form of unity that has a clear intent behind it, so we can truly remember our connection to the divine source beings that we are in this ever-present, mighty, co-creative moment of the now. It is within the choice of every moment that we get turn action or inaction to a whole new frame of life. Thanks a lot, everyone, and we'll be back next week on Charting Your Course. 2, Charting Your Course with Kathy Ma and Debbie Smart. I'm Andrew Bartzis. We are here to talk about all of the new things that are coming with the awakening process. The whole purpose of this show, to bring this super team together, is to bring this hyper-frequency of awareness of what is awakening now. In our first show, we went over a lot of the cyclical things that people are regularly reoccurring in their life. I want to welcome to the show Kathy and Debbie. Kathy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. It's just, again, another beautiful day where I am. Lovely. The energy is great. I feel really high vibe today. And so it's a great time to be on this show, Charting Your Course, where we're going to talk about what we can do with our lives, where we are now, and how to move forward in a positive way.
And in that positivity, we have to understand that motivation is within the self, which we learned from last show. Debbie, welcome back to the show. What do you have to remember from our first show?
Oh, hi, Andrew. Hi, Kathy. I'm so happy to be back. Oh, there were so many things that we covered, but they were so important. And from the first show, we basically talked about our own personal experiences as far as what we've done and our different modalities that we've embarked upon, and how these different modalities out there for people can take advantage of the different things that really appeal to them, that is going to help them move forward and heal themselves. Myself, I'm a hypnotherapist, and what I do is get to the root cause of people's problems that are blocking their path and are embedded in their emotional body and in their, in their cellular system. There's so many different ways and different modalities, things that we can do to really improve and bring our life to a better balance.
Exactly. Better balance with self-motivation as part of you, so that we can go forward into educating ourselves in a whole new layer of understanding. So today we're going to be going back to the basics of awakening, and we're going to be talking about some terminology that many of you should regularly be aware of. Now, the first thing I want to talk about with Kathy here is trigger points, meridians, and energy blockages. Both Kathy and Debbie each have a unique perspective on how these things function from the different modalities that they talk about. Kathy, how do you see these trigger points and they affect the physical body, meridians and energy blockages?
Oh, well, everything is so related to everything in our body, and once we can affect things in our body, make that change, then our reality also changes. When you talk about the body itself, I mean, one of the things that I remember years ago was seeing a cartoon of a trash can. Of course, the trash can had arms and eyes, etc. And he was on the massage table, and he was going, "I will not relax. I will not relax." So 3 cartoon shots later, he's then flat as a deflated tire going, "Okay, maybe I like massage." And that's very much what self-massage, trigger points, meridians, energy blockages, that all is us at the beginning. We are the trash can that is stiff and unbending. And after we do this body work and we actually do some healing on ourselves, or get someone to help us do healing on ourselves, then we can be that deflated tire. And by deflated tire, it's just imagery, not actually the deflated tire, but bendable, malleable, and soft. And that's what we're all trying to achieve. When you talk about meridian points, one of the main things that I really love a lot is the shiatsu, which can be a big feature in the foot massage. In Asia, it is very, very popular, because if you have time for nothing else, you at least pop in for a 15-minute footy, because after that, you just feel so rejuvenated and regenerated. But one of the things that I really, really sort of, I don't know what the word is, impacted me, I suppose, a lot, was when I was in the States 20 odd years ago. I was in California and went and learned how to do Watsu. And that's a form of healing that is done in warm water. I was up at a hot springs doing that. And that was just the most amazing thing I'd ever experienced. I had to learn it. And what they do is they support you in a body of water. So let's say it's like a small pool. So when you're standing in the water, it's like up to your chest. You're never fully immersed. And so you're supporting the person with your arms and your hands, and you're helping them do gentle movement in the water. So the water is fully supporting the person so that you can increase your range of motion, because gravity no longer applies to you. So even you holding up a leg and doing a big, if you can imagine, like a martial arts sweep, but of course this is a very slow process. It's not martial arts, but you can imagine the leg bending back, like you were about to kick, and then you swish them one way, you swish them another way, and how that loosens up your body. And when the body is a bit more looser, then you use the trigger points, the meridians, the shiatsu, and you do the points all along their back, their neck, their legs. And so a session of, let's say, 45 minutes, you come out and you think you've been reborn. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So you have the water that's also part of the healing process. You have the shiatsu, the meridians, which are all those trigger points that release energy within your body, because all these meridians are related to different things. So, for example, there's a lot of points in your foot that relate to your head, your neck, your stomach. So if you're having a tummy ache or you're having period pains, you can go down to your foot and near your Achilles heel, and you can massage those points to give you relief. So when you're doing all these things incorporated in, it's absolutely a most amazing sensation. And then once you're familiar with that, you can go further and go into things like Vasatansan. And Vasatansan is where they put a nose plug on you, and they also take you underwater, and your breath really slows down like you were in deep meditation. And that is the most incredible experience you will ever have. I mean, I have never repeated that experience in my life apart from Vasatansan.
That's amazing. So your understanding of the energy blockages, when we're working on trigger points, you're that garbage can, and as those blockages move away, they reveal the next layer. And I want to bring Debbie in here to talk about energy cysts and energy blockages from the past life regression standpoint.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Andrew. Yes, the energy in the meridians that, like Kathy was addressing as well, is so important to start to become aware about where your energy is flowing or where it's blocked. And it's usually, when you have blocked energy in the body, it's usually a little bit of ache or stiffness or something like that. And that's where we're blocking our emotional baggage into the different cellular areas of our body. With past life regression, I've had people come in with all sorts of different complaints about their body. You know, either a frozen shoulder or a frozen hip or a stiff neck. And it's interesting, when I've taken them back through into a past life, it's usually that's where they've been affected. They've either been in a civil war in a past life, or they've been hung or decapitated, lots of all different things. And that energy imprint has just been stuck into that body, part of the body, and it's created a weakness. And so as you progress with your soul's journey in this lifetime, these things start to appear. And so in the work that I do, releasing those is just amazing. The people have, take for instance, I'm right in the middle of a past life regression with a person, and they're going through that experience. And at the end of that experience, we do a release. And just before the release, it becomes intense in that area. And they're going, oh, I'm really feeling that pain, or I'm really feeling the blockage, just for a split second. And so we do this process where we just heal it and release it, and it's like a soma release. And those are all along the meridian points as well, in those energy blocks. Energy cysts I've worked with massage, where you can feel these lumps in the person's body and breaking down. And when you've done acupressure, I've done shiatsu acupressure back in my past, and when you press into these points, it triggers up a memory of what's stored in that blockage, in that cyst. That's if you're more conscious about what's going on in your life. I've had people totally unaware and unconscious, and when you press into those energy cysts, it brings up an emotion, but they can't put their finger on it. And I just say to them, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to remember what the thought was that's embedded in that energy cyst. Just allow it to release and flow. And so I work in that modality with that too. But a lot of those energy cysts have released through regression as well.
So Debbie, what is a somatic release or a soma release?
A somatic release is an emotional release. And I'll give an example too. When I was doing my shiatsu acupressure course, I was talking to my instructor, who's an acupuncturist, and he was teaching shiatsu acupressure. And he was saying that he's had experiences on his table where he's been putting acupuncture needles into the person's meridians, into certain points in their body, and all of a sudden it triggers off an emotional release, and they're screaming, and they're going back to really reliving the experience. So that's where I first learned about the emotional experiences, how they get locked into the cellular memory. And he was telling me that, there was one case there where this girl was actually thinking that he was raping her. The memory was so strongly embedded into her cellular structure. But he was lucky. He was always very careful in his practice to have a female nurse with him always, so that he couldn't be accused of anything. That's how much the experiences that he's had with people reliving what's going on in their life. When you're hitting those acupuncture points and meridian points, it's the same as when I'm doing past life regression. We start to get in tune with those areas where the energy memories are blocked into the cellular memory, and they come up and they relive that. And so that somatic release is an actual energy and emotional release that actually leaves the body.
Yeah, yes, and another example of this type of release is there was a singer that was recently killed by a stalker, and you and I were talking about this, and there was somebody that we both know that was having a lot of emotional issues, and right away the best way for her to deal with this is to understanding she was storing all of that emotional energy in her hips and her buttocks, which was creating energy blockages about the morning.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you shared that with me too, Andrew, because I called her and I mentioned to her exactly the instructions you gave me to give her. And so she went ahead and did that stretch out like you said, and it released that emotional block that was from the morning and the sadness. She said that she was in such a funk and feeling so sad that she could barely drag herself around. And after that released it.
Yes. Kathy, what are your view about the somatic releases and how they kind of just emerge out of people out of nowhere?
They definitely can be very, very powerful. One of the things that I've probably learned or garnered information about it is that it's a very tricky situation in the sense of you really have to choose the right kind of person to be doing this sort of healing release with you, because once you do start releasing all this kind of stuff and then you're trying to analyze it, I guess, in a way, or find out a way to break that cycle or get that energy blockage out, it's very difficult to do on your own. You need someone who understands what's going on and has that nurturing aspect that can help you through that. Because one of the things I have noticed is you can have a lot of releasing going on, but if the person that's helping you or assisting you in releasing all this type of stuff is not very good at coping with it, that means that when you leave the treatment, you're sort of walking along with this consciousness bouncing in and out. So part of you is aware of it, part of you is not. And that can be a bit freaky and a bit, I'm just going to say not great. So when you do have these kind of releases, you really need to make sure that you can have time to consider them, try and release them, or at least put them in a space where they're not going to keep popping back into your consciousness. And if the person that is treating you is not capable of doing so, then seek assistance afterwards to find someone, even if it's your own mother, to talk you through things like that. Because having, let's say, traumatic or experiences or angst or fear rise to your consciousness and just keep jumping up and down in there can give you a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, make you do a few crazy things. And by crazy things, I mean, fly off the handle at someone for no reason, or accuse someone of something because you're fearful of whatever. So this is a very important thing that I've learned over these type of releases, is that choose who you're doing it with very wisely. And if you don't know, or you couldn't possibly know that you're going to have those kind of releases, make sure that you do have someone that you know that you can call or talk to later.
Yes, because they have long and far-reaching implications to who you are.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I mean, to refer to the incident that Debbie talked about, how the girl with the acupuncture was reliving a rape, whether it was this life or past life, at the end of it, you're going to have all that fear, that violation, that all sorts of probably negative emotions that are just right at the surface of your heart. And if you can't reconcile it, that day or the next few days, you're going to go around being all panicky and look over your shoulder for, no reason. And that's, it's a terrible thing to live in fear or with panic when you don't even, or you're not even sure where it's coming from.
Yeah, when you're not even sure where it's coming from, that's the hardest thing. Now, the next layer, below somatic release, oftentimes people end up with, their backs feel like concrete, or the back of their neck and their shoulders. And this is where they're storing their stress and their emotion. And this is where common energy blockages. Most of the people on this awakening process who are trying to keep their head above water and to not have to tread water all the time, constantly losing energy, dealing with common energy blockages are some of the most important things. Now, you can do this through trigger points, meridian work, acupuncture, acupressure, but I think the most important thing to understand about these common energy blockages: self-stretching, self-healing, and self-nurturing. Kathy, what do you have to add with self-healing, self-nurturing, and self-stretching?
Well, I'm a big fan of things like yoga. Even if you don't know how to do yoga, or you're in an environment where you can't go to a class, or financially it's too difficult for you to do yoga classes, I'd say go on, look on YouTube. Look for something very simple. Don't go too complicated, but learn a few things, because doing a few simple things is better than doing nothing. Because once you start stretching, and your body is releasing those kind of blockage energies, plus it's also beneficial for your muscles and your body, then you will start to feel more energetic, more motivated, and you probably will even start to think that your clarity is a bit clearer. I'm not even sure if that's the right phrase, but that's kind of how I visualize it in my head.
No, it's a very accurate. Your clarity is clearer because when you have energy blockades or toxins in your intestinal system, everything is very blurry, almost like the fog of war.
Yes, yes, that's exactly it. And yes, so definitely do self-stretch. And if for some reason you think yoga is just not for you, it's too arty-farty or whatever,
Pilates.
then Pilates, yes, or even martial arts have basic stretching movements. And all these things you can look on internet. Again, do not go and do complicated moves. Just do the simple, top 3 things, because something is better than nothing. And once you start doing it and your body, everything's flowing, the chi, the energy in your body is flowing, like to put it, in the old-fashioned way, the juices are going, you will then start to feel that energy because you're breathing life back into yourself, literally. Right. I mean, of course, breathing exercises are great, but they're not for everyone. I get it. I mean, sometimes you feel like you're panting like a dog.
Yep, exactly. You feel like you're
is someone
like
coming
dog,
over?
yeah.
I remember when my mum was first introducing it to me, and then I went to yoga class, and they were also doing it. I was like, not that anyone was watching me, but it felt so embarrassing to do it, because I just couldn't conceptualize that this was going to be good for me. But I bit my bullet because I thought, if my mum can do it, I can do it. But it really, blow me down if it didn't work. I felt great. I felt energized. I mean, for the first 10 minutes, I felt a bit heady, a bit, not dizzy, but lightheaded because I wasn't used to it. But, you do some breathing like for 30 seconds and then you stop. So it's not like you're continuously doing it for hours.
Exactly.
But afterwards, just the energy that you feel and to feel that chi, brush on through you and to be able to feel like you can access more just makes you feel healthier, even if it isn't actually immediately making you feel healthier. You do, because your whole chest is open up, your lungs feel great. That was amazing. Yeah, so definitely self-stretching is a wonderful, wonderful thing to start. I have a lot of clients that are very martial arts based in their hobbies and sports, and they just have a lot of stretches as well. I mean, to me, they're a little bit intense because obviously I don't bend ways that they bend. But you can do some basic moves as well, which I also find very good. And they also incorporate breath work into it, which is great.
That breath work. So what about the self-healing and the self-nurturing side?
The self-healing, I think, is also another great thing because there's so much you can do for yourself, and you don't even have to tell anyone about it. It can be as basic as you burning essential oils and inhaling them just throughout the room, to doing self-massage, where if you don't have any massage oil, you could just use baby oil, anything that's, or moisture. You could use moisturizer, but it does get a bit dry. You have to keep reapplying a lot of moisturizer. But you could even do self-massage to the back of your neck, to the back of your shoulders. If your arms are getting tired, then you sit at your desk, you lean your elbows on the desk, and you can massage it. Doing pressure points in your hand and in your feet is absolutely wonderful, especially when you have headaches, stomach aches. And I tell you this, the best thing I found for this is if you get food poisoning is to do your feet, because once you've rubbed, well, I had to get someone to do it for me because I was very sick, but that is also a self-healing, because the minute you can have about 20 minutes of foot massage, the food poisoning is nearly over and you just can fall asleep and you feel great. So that's another great one.
Yeah, it can take the dry heaves away.
Yeah. And even it can make you just, go to the bathroom, get it all out real quick.
Yep.
And then allow your body to relax, because your body is so tense by then.
Yeah.
And we've all had food poisoning, and there's no telling when you're going to get it, because, if you knew you were going to get it, you wouldn't eat whatever it was.
Exactly. Damn that shrimp.
Yeah, that pesky piece of pork. I'm never eating at that restaurant again. Well, sometimes you don't know. You know, one time, about 2 decades ago, I was in Montana and I went to a fancy restaurant and I thought I'd try steak because, I'm in Montana. And, it tastes really lemony. I'm like, wow, this is really unusual. I didn't know in this area people put a lot of lemon on steak. Anyway, that night, sick as a dog. And then later on, I realized they must have known the beef was a bit off. And so they had put lemon juice seasoning on it. So you wouldn't notice that, it was a bit off. But I was obviously very sick and I did my feet for about 10 minutes because that's all I could take because I was just, it's hard to bend over and do your foot and be sick at the same time. But it really helped me get it all out and I could collapse into bed later. And that's an example of if you're on your own, you can do it yourself. But anyway, I diverge from the self-healing. So going back to other things you can do is you can also sit down, you think about where you are in your life and what's going on and the cycles that you're in. Because, for example, if you are constantly having a lot of back pain, a lot of neck pain, then not only do you have to look at, of course, the stretching, so your posture, but you also have to look at what's going on for you. I mean, what is it that you think is trapped in your neck? Even if you know nothing, what energy do you think it is? Is it that you're constantly fighting with your mother over whether you're going to marry the right guy, and since then you've had a really painful neck? And that's just an example. But try and track back to when that time was, because then sometimes when you just see a situation and you recognize it, you acknowledge that, okay, that emotion's been good for me, and now I'm going to release it in however way I'm going to, and then from now on, what am I going to do, and make a plan to your next best steps, how to avoid this sort of situation. You may find, apart from just, doing your self-massage, that you can release some of the energy yourself so that you empower yourself to be able to do your self-healing to get a better health. Obviously, it is much better if you can get someone to help you with this scenario, but it is something that you can do for yourself, and it will open up doors for you as well, because if you suddenly think, well, actually, no, it's not my mother. In fact, it's my daughter. She's like, 12 and start dating all these guys, and I'm just getting freaking out. What if she gets pregnant or whatever it is? But whatever the situation comes up, if you're not in a position where you can find someone to talk to about it or access to any type of healing, then at least you can look something up on the internet and think, oh, well, I can't be the only mother that's having these worries about, daughter getting pregnant. Let me see if there's a forum group on the internet and ask these other mothers if they're also freaking out and are they getting pains and what did they do for it. There's all these things that you could do your initial first steps yourself, as long as you're willing to try. It may not be the answer for you, but at least you're exploring the possibilities of getting an answer and trying to find out how you can improve yourself, your health, your attitude towards your health. And then the self-nurturing. Self-nurturing is one of these things that often we really forget. We just, it falls to the wayside and we're like, because to do self-nurturing, you kind of almost feel selfish. It's like, but I'm not worthy of self-nurture. I mean, I've got, a husband, I've got children, I have an old sick father, I have a dog with 3 legs, and you prioritize your love and nurture for other people, for other things, for other animals over yourself. And this is just the nature of, what loving and giving people are like. What you need to be able to do is step back and think, you know what? It's time for me. It's me time today. Today, I'm going to look after myself. Whether it means I'm going to give myself a pedicure or go and get a pedicure, or I'm going to give myself a face massage, I'm going to buy a nice oil so I can put it in the burner. Whatever it is for you, you need to take time to look after you. Love yourself, take care of yourself, because if you don't do it, no one else will. I'm not saying people that love you won't do it, but they can't do it the same that you can do it on a regular basis. Every day you can do something to do self-nurture, to love yourself, to remind yourself of the fabulous being you are. And at the end of the day, it really is your responsibility to yourself to be doing this, not to rely upon other people to do it. So what is it that you can do today to self-nurture yourself? Because it's time to start.
And once you make that start into self-healing, self-nurturing, all the things we talked about previously in the show, trigger points, meridians, energy blockages, energy cysts, all of that comes to your agenda of healing yourself. Debbie, I want to bring the same questions to you about self-healing, self-nurturing, how to deal with the body, the mind, the soul, and the discipline and drive that it takes the individual person to get and ask for help from such as body workers or to do it on themselves.
That's a really, really good question, Andrew, and it's a really good subject for people to, address. I know even in my early days when I was starting to become more self-aware and on my spiritual journey, I had to really stop and take a good look at where I was with my life and what was affecting me physically, emotionally, and mentally. And when I really took a good look, I was very self-sacrificing. Everybody else was more important. My children were more important. I looked at my body type at that time. I was very thin, and I really realized I was very underweight, and it wasn't through diet because I used to eat a lot. But my body just was not responding. And so I realized there was no self-nurturing going on. I was, more into self-denial because everybody else was more important than me. And so I had to start changing that thought process about when am I going to start giving to me? And when I made that choice to start giving more to me and learning to say no, that everybody else wasn't more important than me, my body started to respond. So it's really interesting how when you make a decision and you're looking at your life, how your body does respond to the way that you think. And so I did embark on a journey then of starting to give myself more nurturing. I did more body work. I took long baths. I listened to meditations, essential oils, amazing how that they can be so calming to the mind, listening to really good music, getting on the internet and listening to inspiring shows that will really pick you up and make you take a really good look at where you're heading in your life. There's so many different ways that we can self-nurture. The thing is really to be very well aware, like Kathy said before, it's so important to pick the right people that you're going to choose to help you or assist you in your healing process, especially if you're going to do different modalities, even acupuncture, like I was talking about before when that woman had that reaction and she thought she was being raped again. The gentleman, the acupuncturist, he was also really good at counselling, and so he settled her down and talked her through it and allowed her to release that experience. It's the same as what I do in a past life regression when a person brings up all those emotional issues, is that afterwards, when I even do the release, afterwards you have to integrate that information. And so I sit there and give time and let's go over it and let's talk about it and let's see how you feel different. So get the people to start looking in a different perspective instead of hanging on to being the victim all the time. It's just that, and our thoughts are really, really important about, in the morning when we wake up, wake up and have a little affirmation on the bathroom mirror when you're cleaning your teeth and telling yourself, I love myself today, or I'm full of vitality and energy. There's all sorts of little things that we can do to really support ourselves on a daily basis. And body work is really important, especially for people in the healing industry, because we're so busy healing others that we really have to take a good look at ourselves and where we're at with our body and our mind and our emotions. And we also need body work and self-nurturing at the same time in order to keep growing and not, building up all these pent-up things that happen in every daily life. We all have them. So that's some of the things that I'd suggest, Andrew.
With that, understanding of self-healing and self-nurturing from what both Kathy and Debbie have said, let's hybrid this all together. One of the very first things that I talked about was motivation. Without motivation to change oneself or to at least alter the static position of your own belief, you find yourself stuck in a scenario of self-healing versus self-nurturing versus dealing with work versus dealing with family versus dealing with whatever else is on the agenda before yourself comes. Making that choice to take the self first is not selfishness. If one is to experience shame, blame, or guilt, that is your internal feelings you're taking on from external projections, or it's some other external projection constantly nagging you in the corner of your field until you take in an energy and create charge with it. One of the most difficult things in the awakening process is to understand who creates charge in you. And the charge, if something creates charge, those that are creating it have a polarity behind it. That can be a positive charge or a negative charge. A positive charge is self-healing and self-nurturing. A negative charge is self-arguing, self-debating, self-deprecation. When you break the cycle of self-deprecation, self-hating, arrogance, and rage, and you begin to do the things that truly nurture the soul and lure it, just like the Pied Piper song, luring the rats, all the mice out of the thing, it can be done. It can be done with that choice in this moment of now. And I want to bring to Kathy about the power of choice and how powerful it is for people that are new in the beginning and awakening process.
The power of choice is absolutely the right way to put it, because people often don't understand they have choices. I get this a lot, and I know Andrew gets the same thing when people do readings with us. It's what is the word? It's surprising to understand or conceptualize that so many people do not understand that they have choices and that they can make different choices. They might not always know what choice they want to make, but looking and searching for choices seems to be almost foreign to some people. And I think it's partly because people are stuck in their own programs that they've been running for so long. They wake up, go through life, don't think too much about the deep stuff, and then come home, have dinner, go to bed. So you don't really consider all the big questions about the choices that you make every day, and the choices to take no action is actually a choice. When you realize that the power of choice is really at your fingertips, then it's a question of where are you going to find some options, and but which one should I take? Like, once you start looking, there are so many. But then, the dark side of yourself, or, the devil on your shoulder is like, no, don't do that. If you do that, then no one will like you anymore. And the other side is going, no, you need to make change. You need to break this cycle. You'll keep staying in it. So it's always the yin and yang, the positive and negative, the doubt and the positive attitude are always clashing with each other. So when you start to really think about what choices that you can make, what choices are available to you, whether it is you read a book, you read a magazine, you see something on telly, you look on the internet, a friend tells you about something, whatever it is, when you start exploring all the choices that are available to you, then you start to think about, I wonder, how different could my life be if I did this? Oh, but I'm scared. So sometimes you really need to just find more and more information to back up the evidence, I guess, to back up your decision about choices that you want to make. And, excuse me, if you're not, still after all that, if you're not sure, then turn to some experts and ask them and see if what they're telling you resonates with you. Because not all information you receive is going to resonate well with you. Some of it might not be good information. Some of it might be you have to think about it because it's just too different, too weird for you to think about. And sometimes you're just not ready. But if you take no action, that is still a choice. You have that power of choice. If you want to move forward and take a more positive step in your life to better your circumstance and continue with your self-healing and your self-nurturing and creating more abundance in your life, then the power of choice is with you. Every day you choose not to do something or stay as you are, it's a choice. You can't really say to yourself, I didn't have any choice. It's not that you didn't have any choice. You choose not to do something. So when you can understand that every day is open to you to make choices, and it doesn't have to be big choices. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to move to a different country. It can be small choices like, you know, I really don't like that company. I'm going to choose not to buy their products anymore, you know, because even small things like that are empowering, and they're about you. They're about your own belief system, about your own ethics, and about you feeling good about doing something. So everything that you do is actually a choice. Whether or not you embrace it and take it somewhere great, or you just keep continuing the whole cycle that you're in, is completely up to you.
And when you know that it's completely up to you, you then run to some of the bigger choices where you may find yourself enabling others. And last week we talked about enabling. And these are some of the harder choices that we have to make as ever-evolving beings.
Oh, yes. They're very hard choices, because once you talk about enabling other people, you get down to a lot of emotional nitty-gritty, and nothing is easy.
Yeah, like
because
why you need to enable.
Yes, yes, and that guilt.
Yep.
What you call it, shame, blame, guilt. Because people are very good at pushing your buttons. If they want something, they're masters at getting it from you, because historically they already know how to get it from you, and you always say yes. So how do you stop that? That's a big challenge, and acknowledging it to yourself is part of a big step forward, because it's not easy.
Right.
Enabling other people is really not helping them, and B, not helping you, because you always feel bad that you have done it, even though it was meant out of a good place.
Right. Enabling is a choice. It may be a subconscious choice because you do it so many times, but it's still a choice.
Yes, that's a very good way to summarize it.
So I want to bring Debbie the same set of questions, the power of choice, and how it greatly affects the person that's fresh on the awakening process.
I'll even use my own example here, Andrew. I had an experience very early in my life when I was facing, just after I had divorce, and I had a very wonderful boss at the time. He was an elderly gentleman, and he was very compassionate, and he asked me one day, you know, how did you get to this point in your life, you know, where you're just a single mother struggling with 2 children, blah, blah, blah. And so I sort of told him my backstory with all of that, and he looks at me and goes, oh, Debbie, you're a real victim of circumstances. And oh my God, that was my wake-up call, because I realised that allowing myself to be in that seat of being a victim, and which I never looked at myself as being a victim until he said that, I realised that I could change that. I could make a choice whether I could be a victim or I'm going to take my power back and start creating my life and moving forward. That was an amazing big choice for me, and it's like with everybody's lives. We come to certain points in our life that we have to make a choice whether we want to be the victim or the enabler or the tyrant. And in our life journeys, we get, so many different situations that can come up and that, we're faced with. And we just have to pause and look at it and go, okay, I have a choice here. I can either choose to be the victim or the tyrant, or I can try and stay in neutral balance and try and act, look at this situation in a more balanced way. We don't obviously do that in our lives, really, in a daily situation, especially in the moment. It's usually when we go back home and we reflect about it and go, oh, gee, I wished I made a different choice, or I reacted differently to that. But we always have the opportunity that we can always make a phone call, we can pick up or go over and visit the person, apologise, or whatever it is that we want to choose to do in any given situation. And, I myself also guilty of enabling my children at times. And and other people have pointed that out to me, which I didn't really particularly like getting that information back.
No?
Yep.
No, you just think, I'm just helping them. No, you're not helping them. You're enabling them. You're stopping them from doing it for themselves. I'm like, oh my God, But as a mother, especially, or even as a woman, I think that we're more we get into that nurturing place, and we don't want to see our children or our friends go through what we've probably gone through, and we try to make it easier for them. And sometimes that is crippling them. And so we have to really look at, before I do this, or before I give them money, or before I do something for them, am I enabling them, or am I assisting? There's a really, really fine line. And, I've been faced with that a lot in my family. And, the thing is that everybody is innately a giver. There's quite a few takers around the place, but mostly in our heart, we want to give. But we also have to look at how much do we give of ourselves to others or, before we give to ourselves. And so we have to find a balance there too. So it's all about choice, about how we are going to interact in our daily life in a more balanced way. Like we can give to ourselves, nurture to ourselves, but also we can assist others without self-sacrificing, but doing it in a balanced way. It's just such an interesting concept, Andrew, when we have to have all these, we're faced with choices every day in our life, and it's becoming wiser through our own experiences and sometimes listening to other people's mistakes that we can learn from, and we can make a better choice with our situations.
Yes, we are both burdened and blessed by the great responsibility of free will, that pure power of choice. Our future is determined in a large part by the choices we make now. We cannot always control our circumstances, but we can and do choose our response to whatever arises. When we choose to reclaim the power of choice, we find courage to live fully in the world in this moment. Anyone can make choices through the heart and their intuitive wisdom, and not through fears, reactions, and habits. And that is ultimately where everyone at the awakening process is. Is it a fear, reaction, habit, or are you truly reclaiming your power of choice so you are not a reactionary being?
Very well put, Andrew. I love that.
Yeah. Reactionary being. That just sums it up.
Right.
I know, because we've all been there, right?
Right. Reactionary to everything instead of an actualized, actuating being. Somebody asked me, how do you live in the now? I actualized it. I did it. I chose to have the burden and blessing of responsibility of free will and to make my set of choices that led me to where I am today, to have a radio show with two incredible people that are assisting everyone else out there in their awakening process.
I like the sounds of that. Charting your course, everyone.
Yes, because we're all on our separate journeys, and even though we are healing other people, we're also consciously looking at our own lives and how we can better it for ourselves as well in every moment.
That's right. The next part of it is presence. We all talk about time. It's a paradox structured between a past this and a future that, and they really have no reality except in our own minds. The idea of time is a convention of thought and language, a social agreement. We all know the deeper truth. We only have this moment. You can think and visualize the past and the future, but you can only live in the present, where choice is at hand at all moment.
Yes. Choice is at hand. That is so true. Every day that you exist, every present moment that you're in is a choice. Even breathing is a choice.
That's right. And the universe, through compassion and the understanding of it, it does not judge us. It only provides consequences, lessons, and opportunities to balance and learn through what we all call the law of cause and effect. When we have compassion for ourselves, we have the recognition that each and every person is doing the best that they can do within the limits of their current beliefs and capacities. The more loving and kinding and forgiveness you can have with yourself, the more you can give to others. One of the most basic rules of self-compassion on this journey to self-healing, self-nurturing, allowing yourself to be present with your choices.
Yes, Andrew, and the thing is also on our journeys too that we've been totally, being present, and that's where your power sits, in the present moment. You don't have any power in the past or in the future. It's right now, here, where you can take control of your life, make the really important choices for you about what you're going to do next or how you're going to handle a certain situation and what are the impact is going to come back. So we always have to be consciously aware in every given moment of our actions and reactions and what the cause and effect of those are.
Exactly. And when we choose self-compassion, self-healing, and self-nurturing, we get to the next level of trusting ourselves enough so that our choices add to us. And then many people on this awakening process get to faith and the trusting of spirit. And if you are practiced in self-healing and self-nurturing, trusting in your spirit is far easier.
the great thing too is once you start trusting in your spirit, you start to see the synchronicity happening in your life. And, you realize that this really works. So I'm going to put more of that into practice, and I'm going to, go within myself and engage my spirit and get guided. And so that every moment I can be consciously aware of what I'm creating and bringing into my life.
Yeah, conscious manifestation.
Yeah.
So now I want to bring this questions up, to the statements here just a little more. So those people that are truly struggling to stay awake now, Kathy, let's talk about faith. Let's define it as two psychics that do a regular show that have been doing this for 20 years. We've run across the faithless, the faithful, the and everything in between.
That's actually a really deep question. Faith is one of those things that really everybody needs. It's faith in yourself, faith in a higher being, faith in the universe in general, faith that things are essentially high vibe, good. Everyone interprets faith in a different form. What I would consider faith, what you, Andrew, you, Debbie, or the listeners, it probably varies in terms of your own personal definition. But one thing about faith, that it doesn't matter who it is or how you define it, I think we can all agree that one needs to have faith in something in order to keep moving forward. Because if you do not have faith, then you will just be a subject or at the whimsy of circumstance. And by whimsy of circumstance, I don't mean, this stuff happened to me in life. No. What I mean is, if you don't believe in anything, then anything that happens in your life, you will only see the negative in it, and you will embrace the negative without even realizing it. Because to you, you think that is what is just and righteous, rather than to go to the flip side and have faith and look at it from a different point of view, such as, I guess for me to achieve what I want, because I've been trying to create abundance, must mean I need to go through this first, because I just can't see the bigger picture yet. Or something out there that's bigger than me, a higher being, a God, spirit, whatever it is that you believe in, that they are watching over you and are leading you somewhere. And often in life, so much happens, there's so much turbulence and so much change that you don't realize what's going on, because you can't possibly take stock of your situation yet, because you have not seen all the events unfold yet. So it's a question of having that belief system within yourself and the faith to move forward and accept that something positive is going to come out of it. And in the accepting of something positive is going to come out of it doesn't mean that you do nothing. It's like, well, okay, this is the situation. So it's challenging me to find a way to get over this big hurdle. So how would I do that? And then you explore the ways that you would get over that hurdle, because they will be apparent. Maybe the answer is not apparent immediately, but the answer will be there. Whereas if you have no faith, you would look at it and think, well, that's just another hurdle. Next time it will be a mountain. So I'm just going to stay here in my grumpy energy and just, And that's a choice. Again, going back to choice. What do you choose to do? What do you choose to believe? If you have faith, then you know that you need to explore your avenues and wait and see what will happen. Can you create a better situation? Or if you're even unsure, wait and see. Maybe something will pop up. There's all these things that can happen. But having faith really empowers you. It helps fill you with the sense of self-empowerment, which then helps you understand that you're not at a loss. You do have an anchor somewhere. You're not just at sea, going with the waves, floating out into the middle of nowhere. And when you can understand that your big picture is that self-empowerment really can make things seem much less horrible than you think they are. And often they're not horrible at all. It's just because you're immersed in the yucky feeling that you're making it feel horrible for yourself more than it is.
It's so well put. And after a while, we find ourselves challenged with faith, challenged with action or inaction, challenged with trusting in spirit. And those are some of the more unique challenges people in the awakening process go through. So I want to bring the same set of questions to Debbie. Faith, trusting in spirit. How do you define it?
For me, with faith, it's really just trusting your process, trusting that, things, putting your faith in your own journey. When we're given it's really like testing something out, isn't it? Whether it's going to be true or not true. But there's this thing called blind faith, and that's putting your trust into something that you really don't know or understand. That I know that I don't really want to touch on religion here, but I also find that there's a lot of blind faith in the different belief systems. And so in order to have faith is really basically, to me, is trusting a process, trusting what you're being told, or trusting what's coming up in front of you, that you're going to be able to get through whatever it is that you're faced with any given moment. I just feel all the time that on this journey that we get tested, with different things, to see where our boundaries are, and if we're going to go step out of our box of what we know and what we feel safe with, and do we have enough faith in ourselves and enough faith in our spirit, or in the divine source, that we can overcome anything that we're faced with, because we get faced with different challenges every day in our life. And having faith in ourselves and having faith in our process, or having faith in our source, that we've got the right connection with source, and so that we have got something that we can actually connect to and know that it's going to work for us. To me, that's where the bottom line is for me.
And that's where self-healing and self-nurturing fits in within that faith to the self.
Yes.
Faith is our direct link to the universal wisdom working through us all. We are more than we've heard, read, or studied. If we just look and listen and trust the love and wisdom of the universal spirit working through us all, faith does not require belief in a religion. It is about trusting the love and physical intelligence we have now, and the spirit working through us and all creation. And when we live this light, we understand perception and experience guides our faith into opportunities in every challenge.
That's so true. You've put that really well. It's sort of just neatly tied it in a bow.
The next thing that so many people in this awakening process is living with their own truth and the integrity that it requires to stay with their own truth, when so many other people in their belief system or in their culture are putting them down, saying, this doesn't real, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you get faced with that a lot, especially when you have starting your spiritual awakening journey and you're still in touch with a lot of your older life friends and family who are not on the same spiritual awakening at all. And it's very difficult because you have to start making some hard choices as to the amount of time that you can still spend with some people, because it's just too hard. Your frame of reference has all changed.
Exactly.
I agree, Kathy, because a lot of the times that we get faced with family and friends when we're on this journey, is they start to question, well, what are you getting involved in? Are you getting involved in a cult, or what's going on for you? And you really have to stop and make a choice about what you're going to accept and listen to from other people. And, trying to turn around and justify your journey is another hard thing that you get faced with. And you realise that I don't have to justify my journey to anybody. I just have to make a choice. And the choice is, that, well, I really respect your growth or where you're at. I respect your belief system. But you also have to learn to respect where I'm at, and allow me to go on my journey, because everybody's journey is different, and at different levels and different modalities work for different people. So it's all about choice and learning to have respect for each other's process.
Exactly. The whole point of living our truth is to do exactly what both Debbie and Kathy have just said. To understand that faith is a part of those choices. When we live in our truth, it means acting in alignment with our highest vision, despite any impulse to the contrary. From the heart of our true integrity, we accept, recognize, and express our authentic personality of who we are, inspiring others with words, not with just words, but by our example. We give conscious awareness to our highest wisdom and internal reality, and then we do not indulge in random impulses and desires. Integrity means being integrated, knowing and being ourselves, so that our actions are consistent with our highest goals and attention, acknowledging our weakness and drawing from our inner strengths, so living our truth truly means something.
Yeah, living our truth truly means something. That really needs to resonate with people because it's so true.
Right? Because if it doesn't, you're just like faux wallpaper. You're not really doing it.
Excellent analogy.
And we're not here to live our lives for other people. We're here to assist and help as much as we can, but we're not here to live our lives through other people's vision of what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. And that goes both ways.
Exactly. No matter what we feel or know, no matter what our potential gifts or talents are, only action brings them to life. Everyone out there understands commitment, courage, and love, but we truly only know what we can do. Doing leads to understanding, and then action turns our knowledge into wisdom. We must be able to overcome inertia and our own impatience, acting in courage, clear intention, so that our commitments mean something to us.
Yes, that's so true. You know, Debbie also brought up a very good point about other people, you know, nosing, sticky beaking into your life, asking you to explain yourself. These are challenges that everyone on the spiritual awakening journey must face, and not even just embarking on it, just through change as one being goes through life. And how to get someone to get their sticky beak out of your business is not easy sometimes, especially when it's family.
Exactly, especially when it's family. Family that knows your triggers, that knows your depressions, your ups and your downs, and they're doing whatever they can do to not necessarily shut you down, but bring you back into conformity.
Yes.
I have an example there, Andrew. Years ago, I decided to do a fire walk. And I was telling my mother about it a couple of weeks later. I said, I really empowered myself. I did this fire walk and I walked on hot burning coals. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, my God, you must have been possessed by the devil to do that. And I went, I'm not giving my power away to any devil. I did it. That was a religious belief, that, you can't do something out of the box. You can't do something. That's supernatural. You've got to be possessed by the devil to do it.
Mm.
Classic. Everyone can relate to that visceral story.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing how much stuff can be, apparently the devil made you do it. It must be a very old school form of, ancestral passed down. I can't explain it. I don't want it. You need to conform what I say. So if you don't do it, the devil is there.
Exactly. And on a more subtle layer, let's say you are married with someone and you decide you want to go off and learn new healing modalities and do a lot of the things we've talked about, and you have that constant nag going, you're not spending enough time with me, you're not doing this with me, you're moving away from me.
Yes, you're changing. I don't recognize you anymore.
It's very common.
Yeah. And it's difficult to face and difficult to hear. And it's very hard to find that balance when these sort of things come up, and to be within your own power and be able to respond without having to explain yourself and without having the other person to feel bad. Like, these are my own personal choices. I'm not doing anything bad. I'm not hiding anything from you. I'm an open book. Go and look at my computer. There's nothing weird. But just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's all spooky. I'm happy to sit down and explain it to you. I'll show you diagrams, etc. But to be able to take that calm look at it and feel empowered with your own energy, to be grounded and be able to speak those words to someone without panicking or getting angry or feeling all sorts of negative emotions is difficult, because it's challenging them, their reaction. You can see in their body language and their face, is not reacting well to you. So just your own emotions are reacting to their emotions. So it takes you off balance, off kilter, ungrounded, and then you start to fluster a bit.
Correct.
You'd almost
Finding-
need to practice it for yourself in front of the mirror every day until you have that conversation.
I call that finding the middle way. And balance is what unlocks its secrets. Balance applies to our body, mind, to spirit, emotions, to all levels of our being. It reminds us that anything we do, we can overdo and underdo. And then inevitably the pendulum of our daily lives or habit swings too far to one side. It will inevitably swing to the other. And then you find yourself in these cycles over and over again of extreme polarity, trying to find the middle way, and then ultimately justifying yourself.
That's really interesting, Andrew, because also when you look at, at these situations where one person is starting to grow spiritually and so they're seeking and the other person is just happy to stay stuck where they are or just in their own comfort zone. And what comes up for them is fear of change. Well, if my wife or my husband's starting to change, does that mean I have to change? And so this is what sometimes brings up the dichotomy of this, struggle between couples who are starting to grow. One person's growing and the other is going in a different direction. It's like, oh, you're not the same person that I married. You've changed so much. No, I'm not the same person because this is what this world's about. It's about change. It's about growth. It's about moving forward. It's not being stuck like a tree in the ground. You have a choice that you can get up and move and change at any given moment. But a lot of the times this emotional, I almost sometimes feel it's almost like emotional blackmail to hold you and keep you into a state that makes them feel comfortable.
Exactly. And when we decide to take life step by step and allow them to be processes, healing is a process, not an event. Process will transform any journey into a series of very small steps, taken one by one to reach our personal goal. Process transcends time, teaches patience, rests on a solid foundation of careful preparation. It embodies the trust in our unfolding potential. And the road to happiness is full of changes and charges from individuals who will ask us to take each thing in a process. When we reach our goals one by one, we can create additional, and then we learn the journey never ends. It is our disciplines with patience and joining forces with ourselves that we become persistent to carry on intentions to completion.
I like the completion.
It's very powerful to look at that, that whole concept and know that, that we can also step into our power and move forward and still be loving and kind to our partners or our friends who start to see changes, but also they get to see things are starting to work in your life. You're looking happy. How come you're looking so vibrant, so healthy, so happy? You look younger.
What's your secret?
Exactly, It's like I'm learning to love myself more. I'm trusting my process more. I'm stepping into my life purpose. I'm living my life the way it should be. And you too, everybody can. It's just the choice.
And that's called dancing to nature's song, when you're just allowing the rhythms and patterns and cycles, the moving of the seasons and the passing of the stars, the ebbs and flow of the tides. The seasons do not push one another, neither do the clouds race across the skies. All things happen in their own time, rising and falling like the ocean waves in the circles of time or whatever else you want to call it. The natural world dances to its own music of change. And like seeds and cycles, we go into our lives and we go through these cycles from one to the other. Nature will teach us everything works together at its own right and perfect timing without resistance or self-resistance.
Ah, yes, the self-resistance, that pesky little problem. Self-resistance, you're so right to bring that up because often, even though our conscious mind says, yes, we want to make change, our emotional mind says, no, I'm going to resist it because I'm comfortable.
Yes, we're scared of change because how's everybody else going to treat us if we change? Sometimes that can hold us back too.
Yes, not only how is people going to treat us, but more, not even more, I guess also it's, I know this, I'm familiar with it. Even though it's not exactly what I want, I don't have to risk anything. And it's, you know, it's like love. You have to risk being hurt. You have to risk your heart to fall in love and have love. If you risk nothing, you really don't gain. And this is the same case. If you don't risk it, how is it going to get any better?
Exactly. And you really have to trust yourself and your own choices, and you make, you know, the choices that, you know, it's going to benefit you, and also it's going to reflect back in a positive way to everybody around you.
Yeah, back again to trusting your process, trusting your faith and spirit working through you, understanding that action turns knowledge into wisdom, and inaction is a choice. And